Buddha once said, holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. The Buddha likened anger to a burning flame, destructive and capable of inflicting harm on ourselves and others. He taught that true happiness lies in cultivating inner peace, and anger is a significant obstacle on that path. Here are 10 practices inspired by Buddhism to help you extinguish the flames of anger and cultivate inner calmness. By the end of this video, you'll be equipped with tools to cultivate inner peace and navigate challenges with a smile. But before we get started, hit that subscribe button. Sharing is caring, and together we can build a more resilient community. Buddha once said, holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. 1. Recognize the signs. Anger often manifests physically, through tightness in the chest, clenched fists, or a racing heart. The first step is to become aware of our body's signals and identify them. Anger, a potent emotion, can erupt within us like a sudden inferno. It consumes our thoughts, tightens our muscles, and clouds our judgment. The Buddha likened anger to a burning flame, destructive and capable of scorching not only ourselves, but also those around us. Yet within the vast teachings of Buddhism lies a path towards extinguishing this fiery emotion and cultivating inner calmness. Our journey begins with recognizing the telltale signs of anger before it engulfs us. This self-awareness is the cornerstone of Buddhist anger management. Our bodies often provide the first clues that anger is brewing. We might experience a tightness in our chest, a clenching of our fists, or a surge of heat rising in our face. Our breath may become shallow, and our heart might begin to pound. These physical sensations are vital signals not to be ignored. The Buddha, in the Anapanasati Sutta, Mindfulness of Breathing Discourse, emphasized the importance of bodily awareness in meditation. By focusing on our breath, we can become attuned to the subtle shifts in our physical state. This heightened awareness allows us to recognize the early signs of anger before it escalates. Our thoughts often act as fuel to the flames of anger. When someone cuts us off in traffic, we might think, "How rude!" If a colleague takes credit for our work, our minds might generate a narrative of injustice. These initial thoughts, though seemingly harmless, can quickly spiral into a torrent of anger if left unchecked. The Buddhist concept of right view from the Eightfold Path encourages us to challenge our automatic thoughts. Are our interpretations of events entirely accurate? Could there be alternative explanations for the situation? By questioning the validity of our initial thoughts, we can interrupt the anger cycle before it takes hold. Anger rarely exists in isolation. It often stems from underlying emotions like hurt, frustration, or fear. Recognizing these underlying emotions is crucial. For example, if a friend cancels plans at the last minute, we might feel hurt or rejected, which could then manifest as anger. The Buddhist practice of Tonglen, Tibetan for sending and taking, helps us navigate these underlying emotions. When anger arises, we can breathe in and acknowledge the pain or frustration beneath it. As we exhale, we can send ourselves compassion and understanding. This practice helps us address the root cause of our anger rather than simply reacting to the surface emotion. The flames of anger often intensify when we feel a sense of injustice or blame someone else entirely for our emotional state. However, Buddhist teachings emphasize the concept of dependent origination, which states that all phenomena arise in relation to other causes and conditions. In the context of anger, this means recognizing that the other person's actions, while perhaps triggering, are not the sole cause of our emotional response. Our own thoughts, interpretations, and past experiences all play a role. By acknowledging this interconnectedness, we can start to depersonalize the situation and lessen the hold the other person's actions have on our emotions. Recognizing the signs of anger is just the first step. 2. Practice mindfulness meditation. Mindfulness meditation trains us to observe our thoughts and emotions without judgment. By becoming aware of anger arising, we can choose not to be swept away by it. Mindfulness meditation cultivates a state of heightened awareness, allowing us to witness our internal landscape with a sense of curiosity and non-judgment. Thich Nhat Hanh, a revered Vietnamese Buddhist monk and teacher, beautifully described this state as being fully present, aware of where we are and what we are doing, not only in the external world but also in the world of our thoughts, feelings, bodily sensations, and perceptions. So, how does mindfulness help us recognize anger? Here's how. Our body often acts as the first alarm system, sending us signals when anger begins to simmer. We might experience a tightness in our chest, a clenching of our fists, or a surge of heat rising in our face. Our breath might become shallow and our heart might begin to pound. In mindfulness meditation, we learn to pay attention to these subtle physical sensations with a sense of detached observation. We don't judge them as good or bad, but simply acknowledge them as indicators of a shift within. Mindfulness meditation teaches us to observe our thoughts without judgment. Instead of getting caught up in the content of the thought, we simply witness it arise and pass away like a cloud in the sky. This allows us to see the impermanent nature of our thoughts and detach from their emotional pull. In mindfulness meditation, we learn to explore our emotional landscape with gentleness and curiosity. We can ask ourselves, what emotions are present beneath this anger? By identifying these underlying emotions, we can address them directly instead of simply reacting to the surface anger. When anger arises, we often identify completely with it. We think, I am angry. This creates a sense of being engulfed by the emotion, making a calm response difficult. Mindfulness meditation helps us break free from this identification. Instead of saying, I am angry, we can observe the anger with a sense of detachment, saying, anger is arising within me. This simple shift in perspective creates a space between ourselves and the emotion, allowing us to choose how we respond. By cultivating mindfulness, we become more sensitive to the subtle cues that precede anger. This allows us to recognize the emotion in its early stages, before it has a chance to escalate and take control. Mindfulness helps us observe our anger without judgment. We don't see ourselves as bad for feeling angry, but simply acknowledge it as a natural human emotion. This non-judgmental approach allows us to respond to the situation with greater clarity and compassion. When we become aware of anger arising, we gain the opportunity to choose how we respond. We are no longer slaves to our emotions, but empowered to choose a more skillful response, one that fosters peace and understanding rather than destruction. 3. Develop compassion. Anger often stems from a perceived threat. Cultivate compassion for ourselves and the person who angered us. They, too, are likely struggling with their own difficulties. The Buddha emphasized the importance of cultivating compassion, a quality often translated as metta, loving kindness, in Pali, the language of the early Buddhist texts. Compassion involves a genuine concern for the suffering of others, coupled with a willingness to alleviate that suffering. When someone angers us, it's easy to demonize them and focus solely on their actions. However, Buddhist teachings encourage us to look deeper. Anger often arises from a perceived threat to our sense of self, our values, or our desires. We might feel, if someone criticizes us or disrespects us, we might feel hurt, and this hurt can easily morph into anger. When someone obstructs our goals or plans, it can lead to frustration, which can then escalate into anger. The first step towards self-compassion is acknowledging our anger. We can say to ourselves, it's understandable that I feel angry right now. Simply acknowledging the emotion without judgment allows us to move towards self-compassion. Anger is a natural human emotion. Everyone experiences it at times. Recognizing that our anger is not a sign of weakness, but a natural human response, can help us be more compassionate towards ourselves. Instead of criticizing ourselves, we can offer ourselves the same kindness and understanding we would offer a friend going through a similar situation. We can say things like, may I be gentle with myself during this difficult time. Once we've begun to cultivate self-compassion, we can extend it towards the person who angered us. This doesn't mean accepting their actions, but rather understanding them from a more compassionate perspective. We might get angry at someone who cuts us off in traffic. However, what if they were rushing their child to the hospital? Taking a moment to consider their perspective can help us soften our anger and generate understanding. Just like us, the person who angered us is also a human being with their own struggles and challenges. They might be going through a difficult time, which could be impacting their behavior. Recognizing our shared humanity can foster compassion instead of anger. When we view ourselves and others with compassion, we create an emotional climate less conducive to anger. We become more understanding and less reactive. Compassion fosters better relationships. When we approach others with empathy and understanding, they are more likely to respond positively. Cultivating compassion leads to a greater sense of inner peace. We become less burdened by anger and resentment, allowing ourselves to be more present and open to the world around us. 4. Learn to forgive. Forgiveness releases us from the burden of resentment. It allows us to let go and move forward with inner peace. Forgiveness doesn't mean accepting the actions or words that caused us pain. It isn't about minimizing the other person's wrongdoing or denying our own hurt. Instead, forgiveness is about releasing ourselves from the burden of hurt and bitterness. It's a choice we make to let go of the negative emotions that hold us back and move forward with inner peace. The Buddha once said, holding on to anger to drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. By clinging to resentment, we only harm ourselves, poisoning our own minds and spirits. Forgiveness, on the other hand, is the antidote, allowing us to heal and find peace. Resentment is like a tightly shut box filled with anger, hurt, and injustice. We carry this box around with us, its weight a constant reminder of the wrong done to us. Resentment creates an emotional burden, weighing us down with negativity and hindering our ability to experience joy and happiness. Resentment can cloud our judgment and distort our perception of reality. We become fixated on the past, unable to see things clearly. When we hold on to resentment towards someone, it inevitably impacts our relationship with them. Communication becomes strained and trust is eroded. The first step towards forgiveness is acknowledging the pain inflicted upon us. Trying to suppress or ignore our hurt only hinders the healing process. We can allow ourselves to feel the anger and sadness, but without clinging to them. While not accepting the action, try to develop empathy and understanding for the person who wronged us. Perhaps they acted out of their own pain or ignorance. This doesn't excuse their actions, but it can help us move beyond personal blame. Instead of focusing solely on the negative aspects of the situation, try to focus on the positive aspects of forgiveness. Consider how letting go can benefit us, freeing us from the burden of resentment and opening the door to greater peace and happiness. Forgiveness allows us to release the anger and resentment that have been holding us captive. This leads to a lighter emotional state and a greater sense of inner peace. By letting go of the negativity associated with the offense, forgiveness allows us to repair damaged relationships and rebuild trust. It opens the door to positive communication and connection. Focusing on the things we are grateful for can help shift our perspective from negativity to appreciation. This can make letting go of resentment easier. As the Dalai Lama beautifully stated, forgiveness is not about accepting the action. It's about seeing with new eyes. 5. Communicate effectively. Instead of letting anger fester, express our concerns assertively and calmly. Open communication can help resolve issues and prevent anger from escalating. The Buddha likened unwholesome speech to a poisoned arrow, capable of inflicting deep wounds. Effective communication, on the other hand, is like a soothing balm, fostering understanding and connection. Suppressing anger may seem like a viable option in the heat of the moment. However, bottling it up can have negative consequences. Unexpressed anger can turn inwards, manifesting as self-criticism, anxiety, or even physical ailments. Suppressed anger can often leak out through passive-aggressive behavior, such as sarcasm, sulking, or the silent treatment. This approach is indirect and ultimately creates more confusion and resentment. Using I statements allows us to take ownership of our feelings without blaming the other person. For example, instead of saying, "You always interrupt me," we can say, "I feel frustrated when I'm interrupted." When the other person responds, practice active listening. This means paying close attention to their words and acknowledging their perspective, even if you disagree. Expressing our anger allows us to release it in a healthy way, reducing overall frustration and tension. Open and honest communication fosters trust and understanding in our relationships, leading to stronger bonds. By openly discussing issues, We can find solutions that address everyone's concerns and prevent future conflict. Before communicating when angry, take time to calm ourselves down using deep breathing exercises or mindfulness practices. This will help us express ourselves clearly and rationally. As Thich Nhat Hanh, a Vietnamese Buddhist monk, beautifully stated, "True communication is not about transmitting information or opinions. True communication is about hearing and being heard, reaching the depths of our hearts and touching the spirit of the other person." 6. Set healthy boundaries. Identify situations or people that trigger our anger and establish boundaries to protect our well-being. It's okay to say no and remove ourselves from negativity. Boundaries are like invisible fences we establish around ourselves, defining what is acceptable and what is not. They protect our physical, emotional, and mental well-being. Setting healthy boundaries is an act of self-respect, ensuring we avoid situations that consistently trigger anger and negativity. Physical boundaries define our physical space and comfort level. Examples include saying no to unwanted hugs or setting boundaries around screen time before bed. These boundaries protect our emotional well-being. They involve expressing what is acceptable to us emotionally and learning to detach from the negativity of others. These boundaries set limits on our time and energy. It's okay to say no to requests that would overload us or disrupt our schedules. These boundaries establish what we are willing to share or lend of our possessions. Once we've identified our triggers and the kinds of boundaries we want to set, it's crucial to communicate them clearly and assertively. Use I statements to communicate your boundaries. For example, "I feel overwhelmed when I have too many things on my plate, so I'm going to have to decline your request." While being respectful, be clear and direct in your communication. People might not always react positively to our boundaries. Be prepared for potential resistance and remain firm in our decision. Setting boundaries is only half the battle. Maintaining them is equally important. Once a boundary is set, be consistent in enforcing it. This shows others you are serious and helps establish a new pattern. By removing ourselves from triggering situations and protecting our well-being, we naturally experience less anger. Healthy boundaries can actually strengthen relationships by fostering mutual respect and understanding. Setting boundaries demonstrates self-respect and empowers us to create a more peaceful and fulfilling life. By shielding ourselves from negativity, we experience less stress and anxiety, promoting overall well-being. Start small by practicing saying no to minor requests. The more comfortable we become saying no in smaller situations, the easier it becomes to set more significant boundaries. 7. Taking care of ourselves. When we're well-rested, nourished, and exercising regularly, we're better equipped to manage stress and anger. Prioritize self-care practices that promote physical and emotional well-being. The Buddha emphasized the importance of right living. Self-care is the foundation of right living. By tending to our own needs and nurturing our physical, emotional, and mental health, we cultivate the inner strength and resilience needed to manage anger effectively. When we neglect our well-being, we become vulnerable to anger. When we're constantly stressed and overworked, creates a fertile ground for anger to take root. If we neglect our emotional needs, unresolved issues and negative feelings can accumulate, eventually spilling over as anger. Physical discomfort, like hunger, fatigue, or lack of sleep, can lower our threshold for anger and make us more reactive. By prioritizing self-care, we cultivate a sense of inner peace and well-being, making us less susceptible to anger. Regular exercise, getting enough sleep, and eating a balanced diet are crucial for physical and mental well-being. Spending time in nature has a calming effect on the mind and reduces stress hormones. Immersing ourselves in nature provides a space to de-stress and reconnect with ourselves, fostering inner peace. Self-care encompasses various aspects of our lives. Here's how we can nurture each area. Engage in regular exercise, eat nourishing foods, get enough sleep, and prioritize relaxation practices. Emotional self. Practice mindfulness and emotional regulation techniques. Express your emotions healthily and set boundaries to protect your well-being. Engage in activities that stimulate our mind, learn new things, and challenge yourself intellectually. Nurture positive relationships that provide support and encouragement. Engage in activities that bring joy and connection. Explore our spiritual beliefs or practices, whatever that means for us. This can provide a sense of purpose and meaning in our life. Prioritizing self-care isn't a selfish act. It's the foundation for inner peace and emotional well-being. When we take care of ourselves, we are better equipped to manage our emotions, including anger. As the Dalai Lama beautifully stated, if you want others to be happy, practice compassion. If you want to be happy yourself, practice self-compassion. By cultivating self-compassion and nurturing our well-being, we extinguish the flames of anger and cultivate a life filled with inner peace and greater connection with ourselves. 8. Avoid triggers. If certain situations or people consistently trigger our anger, try to avoid them or develop coping mechanisms to manage our response in those scenarios. The Buddha emphasized the importance of right action, which includes understanding the causes of suffering and taking steps to minimize them. By becoming aware of our triggers, we can take proactive steps to avoid them or manage our response. If certain people or situations consistently trigger our anger, set boundaries to limit our exposure. This could involve saying no to requests, delegating tasks, or limiting conversations on sensitive topics. Regular meditation practice cultivates awareness of rising anger. This space allows us to choose a calm response instead of reacting impulsively. When anger starts to rise, deep breathing exercises can help slow our heart rate and calm your nervous system. Challenge negative thought patterns that fuel our anger. Reframe the situation in a more positive or neutral light. If we feel our anger escalating, excuse ourselves and take a time out. Take a few deep breaths, splash some cold water on our face, or do something else to de-escalate. Minimizing exposure to triggers naturally leads to less frequent outbursts of anger. By managing our anger more effectively, we cultivate healthier and more respectful relationships. By developing self-awareness and employing the tools offered by mindfulness and self-care, we can navigate the storms of anger and cultivate a life filled with greater peace and emotional resilience. As Thich Nhat Hanh, a Vietnamese Buddhist monk, beautifully stated, sometimes your joy is the source of your frustration because you want so much for everything to be good and beautiful all the time, but that's not the way life is. 9. Practice patience. Patience allows you to respond thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively. Patience is a skill that strengthens with practice. The Buddha emphasized the importance of cultivating patience, Kanti and Pali, a quality that allows us to remain calm and composed in the face of adversity. When we react impulsively due to impatience, we make decisions based on anger rather than logic, often leading to negative consequences. Impatience can quickly erode trust and understanding in our relationships. People around us feel defensive and withdraw when we constantly express frustration. A constant state of impatience creates chronic stress, impacting our physical and mental well-being. Patience allows us to choose our reaction instead of being ruled by our anger. By remaining calm and composed in challenging situations, we experience lower stress levels and improved overall well-being. The journey towards cultivating patience can be challenging, especially when dealing with frustrating situations or difficult people. However, the rewards are immeasurable. As the Dalai Lama beautifully stated, patience is not the ability to wait, but the ability to keep a good attitude while waiting. By cultivating patience, we create an inner space of peace and calm, allowing us to navigate life's challenges with greater grace and resilience. We become less reactive and more proactive in our responses, fostering healthier relationships and a more fulfilling life. By cultivating patience, we not only benefit ourselves, but also create a ripple effect of peace and understanding in the world around us. 10. Cultivate metta, loving kindness. Metta meditation involves sending thoughts of kindness and goodwill to ourselves and others. This practice fosters compassion and reduces negativity, creating a less fertile ground for anger to grow. Metta cultivation involves sending thoughts of kindness and goodwill towards ourselves and others. This practice goes beyond mere politeness or friendliness. It's about actively cultivating a genuine wish for happiness and well-being for all beings. By nurturing compassion and reducing negativity within ourselves, we create an environment less hospitable to anger. Anger thrives in a climate of negativity. When we dwell on situations that have angered us, we keep the emotional fire burning. This continuous churning of negative thoughts fuels anger and makes it harder to let go. Angry self-talk, like, "I can't believe they did that to me," reinforces feelings of resentment and keeps us locked in a cycle of anger. Placing blame on others fosters feelings of bitterness and hinders our ability to find peaceful resolutions. Metta meditation begins with self-direction. We send wishes of peace and happiness to ourselves, fostering self-acceptance and interrupting negative self-talk. Metta cultivation promotes a sense of generosity of spirit. We recognize that everyone experiences suffering, and we wish for everyone's well-being. Metta meditation is a simple yet powerful practice. Sit comfortably in a quiet space where you can focus without distractions. Silently set an intention to cultivate loving kindness. Silently repeat phrases like, "May I be happy," "May I be safe," or "May I be free from suffering." Once comfortable with self-directed metta, extend these wishes to loved ones, then acquaintances, and eventually even those who have angered us. By replacing negativity with compassion, we create less fertile ground for anger to grow. Metta fosters empathy and understanding, leading to stronger and more harmonious relationships. Cultivating kindness towards ourselves and others cultivates a sense of inner peace and well-being. Metta meditation promotes relaxation and reduces stress and anxiety that can contribute to anger. Even a few minutes of daily metta meditation can make a big difference. Extend small acts of kindness throughout the day, like holding a door open for someone or offering a smile. As Sharon Salzberg, a renowned meditation teacher, beautifully stated, "Metta isn't about creating a world where everything is perfect. It's about bringing a quality of love and care to whatever situation we find ourselves in." By nurturing metta within ourselves, we not only transform our own experience of anger, but also contribute to a ripple effect of kindness and compassion in the world around us. This creates a more peaceful and harmonious environment for ourselves and all beings. By incorporating these practices into our life, we can gradually cultivate inner peace and respond to situations with greater understanding and compassion. If you like this video, subscribe, like, and share.